In what has become one of the most disturbing stories of France's summer festival season, more than 140 people, mostly young women, reported being pricked with syringes during a nationwide music festival in France. With multiple arrests and ongoing investigations, questions remain about the nature of the attacks. We are joined today by Pierre-Marie Séve, Director of the Institute of Justice and political commentator.
Thank you. Good day to all Europeans out there.
Good day. So could you tell us what do we currently know about the nature and scale of the syringe attack at this music festival?
So it was taking place. It's a national festival. It's not a usual festival that happens in one particular city. It's been something that was launched by the state, by the Minister of Culture. We have that in France since the 80s. And it used to be a very friendly and very calm holiday or festival ordered around music. So you have anybody, any French people, any French person can go out in the street with his guitar, with his piano, and improvise something, a little concert. And anybody can do that from its window. In Paris, you can be at the window of your building, and people can just gather. It's been very. For decades, it's been a very pleasant festival and very pleasant event. But so it was last Saturday, and it was a very, very hot day in France. It's been 34 degrees Celsius in Paris. So it is pretty hot, and so it has been one of the festivals with the most people. So in Paris, we have seen scenes, videos from of the center of Paris, or of many places in Paris, many neighborhoods. They all have their own concerts, but there were some big concerts, and one was really in the heart of Paris, near the metro station Châtelet. So really the center of Paris, for those who know, and we've seen crowds, really incredibly dense crowds. Thousands of people, tens of thousands of people at the same place. And we've seen also different sites, depending on the neighborhood that you watch to. Because if you watch at the north of Paris, it was as well pretty calm, with no problems at all. But really in the center of Paris, where all the immigrants came, well, a lot of them are French. They hold the French citizenship, but people of black descent, of African origin, there were thousands, hundreds, maybe hundreds of thousands. We talk about hundreds of thousands of people that came to Paris that evening. So a lot of people, and of course with the heat. And with the usual French, it's growing as a tradition, but it certainly is not French at all, but it's growing as a tradition of violence. Every time there's a feast or an event, we've seen that, and we talked about that 2 weeks ago, about the victory, the football match that Paris won, and that resulted in hundreds of arrests and looted stores and broken houses and destroyed cars. So every time there's an event, there's an occasion, we have the usual suspects. So French, not so French. Most of them are of immigrant origin, but the usual criminals that we see, that French people day to day live with and suffer of living with, and so once again that evening, so Saturday evening, the 21st, there has been clashes with the police. No burned cars that day, but it's almost a miracle. But clashes with the police, a lot of clashes of attacks between people that didn't know each other, attempted murders. We've seen I saw at least 3 reports of people being stabbed in Paris that evening, and we also saw the syringes incident with at least 131 women that reported having been attacked, because it is a physical attack by syringes of people I don't know their particular objective. We probably it has something to do with sexual violence, because it is aimed at women. So we can probably comprehend that it was towards that nasty and terrible goal. And we had more details. There's a pretty famous French journalist called Amaury Bucco, who has a lot of police sources, and he was able to give the first names of the suspects of these attacks. And out of, I think, 14 suspects that were arrested, at least 10 or 11 of them, the first names were not of French origin. So once again, it poses that problem that we all know is one of the biggest problems of Europe today, is the non-assimilation, non-integration of a massive immigration and a massive immigrants. So the heat, the usual French criminal problems, the event, the mass gathering of tens of thousands of people, maybe hundreds of thousands, all this gave that new incident of syringes that is pretty new in France, that we saw. As a commentator, I see it more and more over the years, but because 5 years ago it almost didn't exist. And maybe that Saturday was probably the first time that it was at such a massive scale, with more than 100 women attacked in one evening.
And how have the authorities described these incidents? I mean, do they consider it coordinated acts, isolated pranks, or how has it been described?
One thing that was pretty unusual and surprising, almost shocking, is that the main the head of the police of Paris had pretty surprising words. He said that the evening overall had been okay. It had been good, and that of course they knew in advance. And now every time there's an event in the streets of Paris, we see massive security forces, massive. And even when there are massive security forces, for example, for the football game 2 weeks ago, it was not enough. So they were prepared. There were thousands of policemen that evening. So I would say that it is partly true that it went well, because Paris is a very big city, and you have very different neighborhoods. You have neighborhoods with a lot of immigrants. You have neighborhoods in the center with many tourists, and you have a very more calm neighborhoods, for example, in the southwest. And so we saw, and I was in Paris that day, not very late in the evening because I have kids, but I was in Paris that day, and I saw very, very nice and cool, had very cool impressions of the center of Paris, of some neighborhoods in the center of Paris. So it was very, and when I said it was partly true, is because in many places it was a very nice evening and things went well, no attacks or anything. But it is partly false also, and we all saw the video, and even going in Paris the days after that, we could see all the damage that was done with 2 looted stores. Or at least they tried to loot them. So it was partly false because there were many attacks in other parts of Paris, and mainly in the part that I told you about, which is Châtelet, which is really the heart of the city. So it left a mixed feeling of having authorities that say that everything is okay, having 130 attacks on women, having clashes with the police, and only 100 or 200 people arrested that night was the new okay. It is the new norm that all French people have to adapt to. This is considered okay by the authorities. So yes, it was really a mixed feeling, and almost I was almost shocked at what the head of police said.
And because even in Sweden, this hasn't been widely reported. There's been very few media outlets writing about it. Has the media written a lot about this as well, and to what extent, and how is it described, and how much evidence is gathered so far? For example, what is said to have been in the syringes?
So in France, we have a lot of tension in the media scene these days, well, these last few years, because for the first time in decades, we have a right-wing mainstream TV channel. It's called C News, and they have the TV station, which is very popular. It's a free TV station, so it gives a very wide audience to the station. It was bought by a French billionaire that is more conservative than the rest of them, and so it changed a lot of things. And this TV channel talked about it pretty much. And it's not only a TV station. We had old magazines that were more conservative, that didn't work so well. And in the last few years, they went more conservative and working in collaboration with the TV station. And also some of them were bought by the same billionaire. So it really opened up a lot of things. And adding to that, the extreme freedom that you have on X, on Twitter, it really gives you access to a lot of information, at least when you want to have access to it. The traditional French grandmother of 70 years old will not have access to that information, but still millions of people, of French people, understood that there has been a problem in Paris for the music fest. And also the social medias have also helped. We at the Institute for Justice we have 90,000 followers on Facebook, and we posted videos of the problems, and they have been seen by hundreds of thousands of people, maybe millions. We have many views. So the thanks to the evolving and developing new media scene and new conservative medias in France, it is being reported, and I would say it is pretty widely reported, and it puts pressure on the mainstream TV stations that have to report the truth for once, because they have one of their colleagues that do it. So we had access pretty easily in France.
And how many regions or cities have reported similar cases? And is there a known connection between them?
It was mostly Paris. It was mostly Paris for once. For the Paris football game, it was all throughout France. But for that specific music fest, it was mostly Paris. And from what I saw, and it is the kind of festival that you will have concerts in villages as well. Pretty much all the villages in Paris and in France will organize something for that music fest. So it drains a lot of people, and but it really was concentrated in Paris for this time. Even though usually when you talk about urban violence in France, it is really sprawled out, and it is kind of a French tradition to sprawl out the problems. For example. It is very different from the United Kingdom, for example, but the fact that migrants in France are sent from Paris to other places of France, to the south of France, to the west, to the north, to even villages. We have a pretty authoritarian way of sprawling the problems. But for once, the problem really was in Paris only.
I'll ask again, has there been any reports of what has said to have been in the syringes? Any updates on that?
No, I didn't see anything. Unfortunately, I didn't see. I think I saw one, but it is pretty a craftsman. So it's a mixture of things that don't really add up. That probably have a very bad intention, but it was not very scientifically made. Except for one, I remember seeing there was a French medicine student that was arrested over this with mental health problems, but he was a medicine student and he was pretty advanced. He was going to become a doctor in 2 or 3 years. So probably that he had something more aggressive. I saw as well testimonies of women that have been attacked by the syringes. Some of them didn't feel anything, and some other of them fell on the floor a few minutes after. So, but and I don't remember having seen any of the attacks being successful from a sexual violence point of view. But really, there's also something else that I can add. In my team at the Institute for Justice, we're 7 at the moment, and I had one person, one of my colleagues. He was sleeping that night around 6 or 7 in the morning, so the night of the music festival, and he sleeps at the 6th floor in one of these tiny rooms of the buildings. He's doing an internship with us, so in the tiny rooms, and he of course sleeps with the window open. And the window, it does not look at the street, but it looks at a small courtyard inside of the building, and he was woken up at 7 by a young woman screaming very loudly, and so he didn't understand. He opened the door, and he saw a few minutes later, and he saw a guy leaving, running, and from what he understood with the young woman and the police that came after that, the young woman at 7, she woke up with somebody of an immigrant origin once again on her. And he had entered from the window at the 6th floor. So, and this has not been reported. These kind of incidents, they're considered, because there was no rape, there was no sexual attack, more than just the guy entered in the room and he left before doing anything. So nobody, even newspapers, nobody reported that, even the conservative newsletters, because these kind of incidents are really becoming the new norm in France. We all have to live with that, and yeah, I feel like this is really one of the stories that we all feel very compelled to. We all have the impression that we can live this kind of thing living in France today, because nobody takes care of our security. Except maybe for the police, but especially for the judicial system, they don't punish people enough, and we let so many people, without controlling them, enter the territory. We know that all of big cities of France are full of dangerous criminals that can attack you in your sleep if you have the bad idea of letting your window open by a very hot summer night.
Thank you, Pierre-Marie Séve, Director of the Institute for Justice, for your insights.
Thank you to you.
And thank you for watching Riks Europe.
Ça part en couille, voilà. Ça part en couille sa mère. Waouh. Il a mis dans la tête. Et il lui a niqué sa mère. Putain, c'est un truc de fou.
Maman,